Hello and welcome to Waterproof Records, my Waterproofians. We are back with another episode, and today I have a guest who I am so excited to introduce to you. Dave Holmes is someone that I was introduced to watching MTV in 1998 as one of the competitors on the show Wanna Be a VJ. He was a finalist up against Jesse Camp, and I remember watching and thinking, this guy, Dave Holmes, knows so much about music, he should win. Well, they ended up giving it to Jesse Camp, but thankfully, Dave Holmes continued to work at MTV, and he has had an incredible career in entertainment. If you aren't familiar with Dave's work, he is a writer, he's an actor, he's a television personality. He hosted a lot of shows on MTV, 120 Minutes, Say What Karaoke. He went on to do shows for FX, CBS. He's been in movies. He was a recurring character on Reno 911 called Leslie Frost. Dave Holmes is just one of the most cool, well-rounded, and knowledgeable guys in music, and he has two successful podcasts. One was a limited run. It was about this band, Sudden Impact, from the early 90s that just came and disappeared, and the show is called Waiting for Impact. It was a 10-episode run, and it's just such a clever idea for a show, so you should check that out. And then he has his other podcast, which has been going on for a long time with him and Matt McConkey. It's called Homophilia, and that's LGBTQ conversations about what their celebrity guests are into, loving, who they love, all that great stuff. So you should definitely check out his work. He has a book out there, and it is called Party of One, a memoir in 21 songs. I know I'm definitely going to be picking that one up as well. But let's get to the theme song so we can talk about our guest. And thank you again for joining me for another Waterproof Records. It's time to talk with Dave Holmes. Let's go.
Things are going to change. I can feel it. If this going to be that kind of party, I'm going
Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records with Jacob Gibbons.
And we're about to dig into it, but before we get started and welcome Dave onto the show, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my sponsor, DistroKid. You hear me talk about it on the show, and I do love DistroKid, what they do, how they help you get your music available online immediately. DistroKid is a service that you can upload your songs, and you can be on every streaming platform, including YouTube, and get your music out there in the world like that. And I have a link for you. It is my own personal special link. It's a VIP link, and it's listed on all my socials. But if you want it right now, it is distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. And that will get you 30% off your first year. So make sure you're using that link. It's really the easiest way. They have an iOS app for your iPhone where you can sign up there or log in if you already have an account. They make it so easy to check the money that you've got coming in from your streams, upload songs, check how things are doing. It's easy, it's amazing, it's inexpensive, and with my link, 30% off your first year. So don't forget, I love DistroKid, and you will too. So check out distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof to get that 30% off. But now, the moment of truth, the moment we've been waiting for. I am so excited about our guest here on the show today. I feel so fortunate to do what I do, and when it leads me and connects me to people that I've admired. I have been a fan of Dave Holmes since I first saw him on MTV, followed his career, and so excited whenever I see him pop up. And when we got a chance to chat and he agreed to come on the show, I was just thrilled about it. So I am so happy to have Dave Holmes. Welcome. Welcome to Waterproof Records.
Oh my God, pleasure to be here.
This is so exciting for me. Huge fan.
Thank you very much. And likewise, I like your work.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot coming from you. As someone I watched on the television when I was just starting college, and I was going, this guy knows everything about music. He's one of those encyclopedic brains about music. Has that always been your thing?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, I will tell you, there's a lot I don't know about or even understand about music anymore. But I think that's kind of, I mean, some of it is age and some of it is just, everything is coming at you from a million different angles and nobody can really keep up with it all, I don't think. But yeah, in my youth, I was really fascinated by the world of music.
Yeah.
And yeah, I liked to read Billboard magazine when I was a kid. You know,
I love that.
I was real nerdy about it. I come from like nobody in my immediate family plays music, but
Right.
you know, we're you know, of Irish descent, so there was always music in the house. And it was sort of, you know, like I'm much younger than my siblings, so like the one thing that we could all do together would be to sing along with the radio, and so that was, you know,
I
it was
love that.
always part of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, similar. My parents aren't musicians. I mean, my mom would probably be like, "Hey, I play piano," but but she never kept up with it. It was like that, you know, that intro. We had a piano in the house, and but I also am of Irish descent, and music was constantly playing in my home. I guess that must be like an Irish thing. So, because like there is it. I did not know, but music was always playing in the background. My mom, and to this day, you go to her house and she still has a little stereo or radio or something trying to constantly play music. And so for me, that's kind of something I've carried on into my life. And I'm always surprised when my friends and my peers and other people I meet, I'm like, oh, everybody doesn't do that. Everybody doesn't just have music constantly playing in their home.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, for me, I mean, we don't really have this anymore, but like in the 90s, when I would like go to someone's apartment and they'd have like 7 CDs. I would be like, what? And they're all like the Bodyguard soundtrack.
Right,
and like the
right.
Dirty Dancing soundtrack. And whatever.
A compilation
and, like,
disc, you know.
Greatest hits compilations.
Okay.
It was like, how sad for you?
Right,
you know?
right. You're missing out.
Yeah. Like I was, you know, my hoarder ass, like just, you know, a ton of cassettes and CDs and mixtapes and everything. Yeah, I mean it's always been just a huge part of my life, and it was like I never really had any talent for it, but like I don't know, it was my like weird idiot savant area. You know, throwing myself into pop music.
Same. That's always been something. As you know, you grew up in St. Louis, correct? You were born in New Jersey, but you grew up in St. Louis.
Grew up in St. Louis, yeah.
And I grew up in Oklahoma, and where I grew up, most of the boys were really into sports, and you know, that was a common thing. And so I never got into athletics, and the memorization that would go around, you know, athletics and sports stars and things like that. My memorization went into music and into movies. You know, that was another obsession of mine as well. But it was, I think that when you have those environments, those small little pockets of life, you kind of assume like, well, everybody's like this. And it isn't until you're older that you go like, oh, there's just a very specific group of people that are super into music. And then there's an even smaller percent that have to know everything, that need to learn as much as they can. They need to read up. They need to know the story. They need to know the context, and they become obsessive. And I'm sure you found this in your life. Like you said at the beginning, I don't know all of it, but when you put yourself in a position in the public eye where you are very knowledgeable on music, people kind of assume that they'll throw things at you left and right all the time, and you're like, I don't know that, and they're like, how can you not? And you're like, well, there's a lot of music, there's a lot of genres, you know, you can't keep up with it.
You can't possibly keep up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild, and it's, you know, in the Midwest, it is so strange, and it's still this way, that like little boys are expected to like go bananas about sports.
Yeah,
it just seems so weird to me.
It seems like weird.
I guess I understand the idea behind putting kids in like sports programs, because it's just like you can put them away for a couple hours and let them run their energy off and whatever.
Camaraderie.
So that I get, sure. Teamwork, resilience, like, you know, that kind of thing. But like the idea of taking it further and making, you know, expecting young boys to like really care about who's the quarterback or whatever. It's it's weird. It's weird.
And I am spoiled living in California for as long as we have. I have 2 sons, and I forget I forget, because when you live in a place like Los Angeles area and in California, you forget that there are still so many places in the rest of the country and other places in the world that are doing things like business as usual, right? It's like the boys do this, the girls do this, and this is what's expected. And I feel very lucky. I feel very fortunate because my sons have all the flexibility and wiggle room to be into whatever they want to be into, and it's totally okay. And it's hilarious, though, because here I am, this rock dad, and my oldest has no interest in my genre of music in the slightest. And my youngest
should be.
Yeah, right. I know. Here I was showing him Nirvana, Pumpkins, Rage, and he's like, "That's all right," And and then my youngest, Verdict's still out. He's 8. He hasn't made his own major life decisions yet. He's still kind of surveying life and his brother and what everybody's into. But
yeah, it's funny, isn't it, California?
It is,
because if you want to be into sports, you can be. And
absolutely.
we have several teams that I am told
I've heard of them, and I've heard they do great.
Yeah, but you can also fully check out. It's in St. Louis. If the Cardinals made the World Series.
Right.
Everybody wore red. Everybody had a flag on the car.
whole city.
They was honking at everybody. Every radio station was talking about it all day long. Out here, it's
it's
the
like
the
some
Rams
of
can be in
it-
the Super Bowl, and if you didn't inquire about it, you would never know in a million years.
Yeah, it's an interesting sports city. It is. That's a very good point, because there's pockets. Sure, if you're going to go down and see a Laker game and something big is going on with Lakers and you're in a certain area of town, then everybody's in it. But it's not. And that's probably the fault of LA being as sprawling and
So
massive. And so if you live by the beaches, is so different than if you live in Hollywood or if you live in the Valley. And
Totally.
Anybody who's ever moved here, and I'm sure you've had this experience too, before they come here, you almost have to break down like a schematic of okay, well, what's the vibe? what's the energy? Where do you want to live? And this is this kind of area here, and this is expensive. This is less expensive. This is not so great. And it's just so there's so many places you can choose to live in LA. And once you get in your pocket, you kind of stay there for a long time.
Do.
Yeah,
you do. You really do. Yeah, I got a friend moving here from New York, and he and his wife are Zillowing and whatever. But I'm like, it's not so much that I want him to live near me, but it's like I want him to take very seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
Are you sure about Mar Vista?
Right.
Because then it's then that is a whole different world.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I
had a friend move to Playa del Rey 15 years ago. I haven't seen him. You know what I mean? And it's not even that I haven't seen him. It's that he is fully a flip-flops and keg on Wednesday guy.
Oh yeah.
It's that's because you moved to Playa del Rey.
Yeah, that's what you decided would be your universe. And I have told that to many people. I'm like, look, if you are a really good friend and you live just too many cities apart, just the nature of the beast is we're not going to hang out that often. Not because I don't love you, not because I don't enjoy time, but we will have to have very planned out opportunities to get together, because it's just one of those cities that it's so difficult to get all the way over there. So if somebody says
spontaneous drink will never happen.
A spontaneous drink will never happen. And if you live in LA and somebody says, "Hey, I'm moving to San Diego," it's like, well, we're not going to see each other. I hope you know that. You're so far away.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally it is as though they're saying they're moving to Reno, Nevada, if they're going to be in Santa Monica. It's wild. Speaking of sports, speaking of LA sports, I'm just going to say this. And it was strictly because of work, but I was at the Super Bowl that the Rams won last year.
You were?
Yeah,
that's
Ben
awesome.
And I were we were not there. We were front row.
Whoa.
We were directly behind the Rams, and incredible tickets and an incredible game. And SoFi Stadium is really beautiful and state of the art and whatever. And for a moment, just because we were there and it was so exciting and the game was so good, I was like, do I like this?
I know.
If it is if you decouple it from like all the male shit, like just like in essence, do I enjoy? I might like sports. I mean, I don't. I forgot everything that I saw, that day. But like, it was fun. It was exciting for a minute.
I get it completely.
Yeah, but it's it just needed to not be like the dominant thing. I think the fact that it was the dominant thing of my youth made me sort of resent it or go another way or whatever. I don't know.
I had a chip on my shoulder about it for the longest time, and that's really what I think made it so difficult. And I get taken to basketball and baseball games all the time through work or social events, and I can usually go and enjoy myself. You have a beer, you have the food, you get it caught up in the enthusiasm, and I can enjoy it while I'm there. But it took me a long time to even be able to get to that place because, you probably have similar experiences. Being in the Midwest with that mentality means that a lot of the kids that were into it were assholes. They were assholes, and it was difficult being an outsider and being into things that not everybody's into, and being into the arts and being into music and not knowing how to catch a football. I remember as an adult, I had to film something, and it was like a skit, and they had me playing catch, and my friend goes, "Have you never learned how to?" He's like, "That is the worst football toss I've ever seen in my life," and I was like, I've never learned, nor do I care.
Yeah. But I never did learn.
I never learned because it just wasn't something I took an interest in. And as I've gotten older, I'd be like, oh, I can see the enthusiasm, the excitement, getting behind a team, really having your players that you enjoy, and that being your thing. I can get why, but it's just that culture that you have to remove.
It's the culture.
Right.
And it's like if you're turned off by the culture, and if you're if you already kind of know that it's not your thing, I found as a kid I could not shake off the self-consciousness of it. You know what I mean? Like there is something about if you're in the majority, if you're with the group or with the team or whatever, there you can loosen up in a way that like allows you to do well and also allows you to like fail and then shake it off.
Yeah.
And not like be like, oh, not shut down completely. Yeah. But just be like, oh, that was a bad throw, or did I, whatever.
Exactly.
I ran the wrong way or whatever, and then just shake it off and move on. If you're not of it, I found that it was impossible for me I was just too self-conscious to retain anything or be of any use to anyone.
Same. Wow, we have such similar upbringings and kind of that same energy around our childhoods. And so I think one of the things I was most interested in is let's get in a little bit of your your introduction to music and the album that you chose. And you to me were introduced in my life as I want to be a VJ on MTV. That's where I first saw your face, and I made a video about it about a year or two ago, where I was like, everybody remember this show? And there I was watching, and Jesse and you are the finalists. And, Jesse, while he had this certain kind of slacker, Pauly Shore, scarf thing going on, which was very MTV. I'm looking over.
Scarf thing going on.
Scarf thing going on. I'm looking over at you. And I'm going, at the time I was a huge Matt Pinfield fan, and I was watching 120 Minutes, and I was like, this guy, this is the guy. This is the guy. This guy's got the knowledge. He's got the all the stuff in his head, and he should be the VJ. He should be the VJ. And I know there are so many like me that felt the same way. And then Jesse wins, and I was like, oh man. And
sweet.
I was so heartbroken. I remember just getting in conversations about it all the time. I was like, Dave Holmes should have won. Dave Holmes should have won. Yeah.
That's very sweet.
I was so supportive of you, and I was like, because I think as somebody who's also a lover of music, I could see it in your eyes. I was like, he's a lover of music. He's not a guy who just knows the facts. He's not rattling them off because he reads a lot, which you do too. But I'm just saying, you were a lover, and I think we can see each other. And I could see you on my TV. And I was like, that guy loves music like I do, and I want him to have this so bad. But I was glad to find out that MTV put you to work, even though you didn't win the contest.
Yeah, they did. And it's because I like kind of wouldn't let them not, you know, like
Good.
It was, you know, like meeting Jesse once we got down to like the top 10, and in the top 5, it was like, well, obviously this guy's gonna win, you know, because like,
Oh, you kind of sense that?
I was
Yeah.
like, I just want to get as far as I can go, but like, you know, if you let the kids vote for the thing, like, of course they're going to be attracted to somebody who's like a character. The idea that like voters would vote for me was just like, they're probably not. But I'm here and I'm meeting people, and I didn't like my regular job, and I thought like, this can turn into something. Maybe I can become I don't even know what a production assistant was at the time, but I was like, maybe I'll, you know, like that guy running around with a headset over there. Maybe I could do that. And so, you know, and so then I didn't win, and it was like, okay, that's kind of because it did get close, and it was like, well, maybe this will happen. And it didn't. But then, you know, there was a rap party, and the people that I had met and worked with that week were all very kind, and I got everybody's business card, and I just remember thinking like the doors open this much,
Right.
and I was old enough to know also that like by Wednesday everyone here will have forgotten what just happened.
That's
so
true.
like I need to call and email and like very quickly like come up with show pitches and just like whatever. Just call as many times or email as many times as I can before they either say leave us alone or come in because maybe there's a writing job on this thing. And it, you know, it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah. Amazing. It
worked out.
So we go back now, we're in St. Louis, you're a little kid and you're hearing music. And what kind of music are your parents playing around the house as our Irish families do?
Yeah. I mean, you know, my folks were married in the early 50s. So that was kind of the time. I mean, my mom remains obsessed with Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just, he is
excellent.
He's a Jesus-like figure within our home, and so there was a lot of that. There was a lot of like, you know, the 50s were the time of the blockbuster like original Broadway cast recording albums.
Sure.
Camelot and West Side Story and The Music Man and that kind of thing. But my folks were in their 40s when they had me, and they had not yet like disengaged from pop music completely.
Makes
there were some
sense.
Beatles in there.
Yeah.
My first like real musical memory is Paul McCartney and Wings. Like before the Beatles, Paul McCartney and Wings.
Oh, really?
On AM radio.
Yeah.
Silly Love Songs and Jet and Band on the Run and all that. And then so my oldest brother started college in the late 70s, 79, I think. And he came home with albums from like The Clash and the B-52s,
right,
and you know, and Blondie and the Cars and that kind of thing. And then, you know, those years were such an explosion of great sort of slightly left field music, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So like, you know, the English Beat and and the Specials and things like that. So I would constantly raid his record crates. And,
as you do. As a younger sibling, you got to raid the crate.
You got to do it. He and my other brother were both very into Bruce Springsteen. But it was really like, it was raiding Dan's record crate and listening to things that no one else my age knew about. That was sort of the gateway from being like, you know, somebody who liked to listen to music to somebody who was like obsessed with it.
Yes.
Because it was like, it wasn't only good music that was a little bit unusual. It was stuff that I was the only one who knew about, and that's such a fun. Absolutely,
it is so fun.
It was
that was so cool pre-internet when you could find something and you felt like it's mine. I'm the only one who knows about this. I'm the only one, even though there were obviously others, but it felt that way, right?
It felt that way, and I think part of the thrill of being the only person who likes something, is that there's the possibility of then becoming the first person who likes something.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
Because sometimes, these things that are just yours, like, catch on in a big
Yeah.
way. And you
Yeah.
kind of get to be like, yeah, I was on that. I was on that.
Yeah. I knew about that. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys finally came around to
I'm glad you
appreciating this
caught up
incredible
to me.
artist.
Yeah. And it's, for a kid who's like, doesn't like, isn't good at sports and doesn't care.
Doesn't care.
It can give that kid an identity, or it's like, everybody's got to have a thing.
Yes.
And so that became my thing. And then I kind of ran with it. The first music that I felt like was really like mine was early REM.
Yeah.
And I remember getting Reckoning from the Columbia House, 12 albums for a penny or whatever it was.
Oh, absolutely. We all did that trick.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And that trick got played on us.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we ended up overpaying for the thing that ended up in your mail that you didn't ask for, and then you're like, now I gotta pay for this thing.
Yeah, that was bad.
It was very clever trickery to us youngins trying to buy music.
The whole industry is straight up evil. But anyway, but yeah, so like I got very into not only like music as a whole, but the idea of like knowing about it first and reading as much as I possibly could about it and all that kind of thing. It was like it was like all of that was coming from a world that was in color, and the world that I was growing up felt very black and white.
That's a good way to put it. That's what it felt like in Tulsa as well. Felt like opening the doors to something that nobody else was seeing. Like you like the, like your color in your eyes, you could see more than everybody else. I was going to say, so I asked Dave before he came on the show, because I do Waterproof Records, your unsinkable tunes from the past, present, and future. I said, what is your Waterproof Records? What is your Waterproof record? As in, what's the one that really sparked something? And leave it to this guy that I saw on TV who had an encyclopedic knowledge to drop an artist on me that, embarrassingly so, I was completely unfamiliar with. I had no background, no knowledge, no understanding. And so you are introducing me to this. This is just like we're kids again, and you're in, but you're like way in for a long time on this artist.
Yeah.
And I want you now to share with the listeners, who did you choose as your first choice?
My first choice was an artist named Tommy Keene, who his major label debut album was called Songs from the Film. And it came out in 1986. So I guess I would have been 14, 15. And like, as we were talking about, I was like the only person who liked a lot of stuff, right?
Right.
And so, and because of that, I read a lot. I would read, Rolling Stone, and I would, sneak peeks of Billboard at the newsstand, and because those were expensive. That would be like $7, and I couldn't
Oh yeah,
do it.
yeah.
And there was a zine in St. Louis called Jet Lag, and so I would pick that up at the record store and whatever, and Tommy Keene was an artist whose name was mentioned a lot, and he had done a couple of EPs that like the Village Voice put in there, like their critics poll, and it, like near the top, and I was just sort of curious about him, and the people that they that the reviews or that whatever press mentions he got likened him to were artists I already liked, like REM or Marshall Crenshaw or whatever. And so I was like, I bet I'm gonna like this guy. So I remember like just fully taking a chance and taking my allowance money or my lawn mowing money or whatever it was, and going to the record bar at the mall and getting Songs from the Film when it came out. And I listened to it, and I was like, I fell in love with it immediately, because it has that sort of jangly quality that my like favorite music has. I've been like, I heard that kind of jangle in a song recently that I love and have loved for a long time, and I can't remember what it is now, but it was like, it hit me very hard that like, oh, that like sort of jangly guitar tone is...
That's the thing.
Like,
it connects.
It gets me. It just, it grabs me every time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, REM and Let's Active and stuff like that in the early 80s, and like Real Estate now. It like they do a similar thing, and it gets me every time. And so anyway, so I fell in love with this album. And I also like I was the only one who knew it. So REM was starting to take off at this time, and like more and more people that I knew started to like them, and they were not my sole like property anymore.
Right. Everybody knows about REM now. They're getting the
knows about
music
them now.
video play.
Yep.
It's the end of the
Yep.
world as we know it video is going, and people are like, who's this?
Exactly. Yeah. Like people who used to kind of make fun of me for listening to it because they had never heard of it were suddenly like, listening to it. And it's like, okay, are we going to address that ever? 'Cause- okay.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, I guess we're just going to move on.
We're going to move on. Fine.
Yeah, so there was something about him that I kind of felt like this is never going to catch on in a huge way as much as I love it. Like there's something not right about it somehow. Like
I can
the
get
lyrics
that.
sometimes are a little clunky, and there's just something about it that doesn't quite work as like super mass appeal music, which made it feel like not only that I was the only one who knew about it or who loved it, but that it needed me. You know what I mean?
Oh,
there was like a feeling of like music is great when it's communal and when there's a stadium full of people all singing the same thing. That's great. But there's also something about somebody just doing a thing in a studio and putting it out there and just being like, I don't know. And then some stranger picks it up and connects to it. And I love that. And I love it when it is like, when it does feel like a very personal exchange between two people who don't know each other at all.
You are speaking my language so much. It's just these kind of ways that you describe something. I go, yes, so intimate.
And so anyway, so I kind of, I don't know, I just fell in love with it. And I listened to it all the time, and he was like my guy. Tommy Keene was my guy.
Yeah.
And he was in a movie. I forget what the movie is called now. But there's an Anthony Michael Hall movie when like
really?
They sort of tried to make him an action hero briefly in like 1987, 88.
Yeah.
I was like On the Run or Out of Bounds or something. And he was and he did a couple songs in it and was in a couple of like club scenes. And so they released an EP of songs from that period shortly after songs from the film. And he played Mississippi Nights in St. Louis, Missouri, a great club on Laclede's Landing. And it was an all-ages show. And I was still not 16, I don't think. But my oldest brother took me down, and there was one other girl from the girls' school that my boys' school was sort of, they were like brother-sister schools.
Right.
Another girl who I'd done like the spring musical with who knew Tommy Keene, and I was like, let's go. And so we went, and very few people were there, which I was like, this is a tragedy.
Yeah.
And everyone who was there was at the bar. So we were in like the all ages section, and he played a set, and we danced through the whole thing. And it's not dance music.
Right.
And we were the only people dancing.
You were jangly dancing. You were jangly guitar
dancing. We were jangly dancing. But even then, it was just like he needs us.
He needs us.
He signed my flyer and he said, "Thanks for dancing," and I was like, "Oh my god, this is incredible! I met Tom Keene," and so I kept up with him forever. He did another record for Geffen in '89 called "Based on Happy Times" that is also very good. And then he got dropped. And he was like never, he was beloved by many in the like critic community and the like rock nerd community, but he never really broke through beyond that. And so there was nothing from him for a long time, and then he sort of made a comeback later in life, which we can get into. But anyway, that was I've already talked your ear off.
No. You're a guest that I could sit and listen and talk to all the time, because I mean you ended up on TV and ended up having these podcasts for a reason. You're somebody that I enjoy hearing from and your insight and, you know, learning about Tommy Keene. This is one of the fun parts of this show is being knowledgeable about my sphere. You know, I have my own sphere of music for sure. And when you mentioned the fact that the album landed in your, you know, on you at 14, 15, it's like, well, that makes sense, because that it seems to be the magic time for when you discover a band, you discover an artist, and just all your hormones and pubescent stuff is happening, and it just clicks in your brain and locks in and goes like, this is your artist. And it's amazing. And so you tell me Tommy Keene, and I'm looking him up, and you sent me this really great performance on Conan, which I watched. And I'm reading through the comments, and I'm like, he was beloved. The fans that loved him were like, it was a shame that he didn't, you know, get bigger. And then I see that he passed away.
Yeah.
And when he passed away in 2017 or something.
Yeah.
And so not too long ago. And I was like, man. So, you know, I'm glad you got a chance to see him live when you were a kid, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So get this. So, all right. So it doesn't do anything for a while, and then, and I guess it would have been 1996, he released an album called 10 Years After.
Okay.
Kind of referencing the fact that, like, songs from the film was supposed to, you know, have been big. And it was,
right.
Now
And
it's
it wasn't,
10 years later. And it was on an indie label I don't recall. But he was back, and I was like, well, this is fucking great. And that album is outstanding. There was, as part of Wanna Be VJ, there was a challenge where we had to run across Broadway to the Virgin Megastore, like during a commercial break or something.
Yeah.
And pick the 3 albums that, like, define us, right? Mm-hmm. And I chose songs from the film as one.
Amazing.
And so this was in 1998 by then. I think he might have released another sort of compilation or something.
Sure.
You know, in at around that time. And so songs from the film was one of my picks. And I guess it got back to Tommy's manager, who then got a hold of me through the network. And Tommy was coming to New York as like on tour to play, I think, Brownies in East Village. And I, of course, was already going. But he was like, you know, let me know if you want to, you know, like come backstage and say hello. And I was like, well, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Of course I do. Of course I do.
Yeah.
And so I went to the show, and it was packed. A small venue, but it was packed.
Sure.
And like, it was, Jacob, filled with guys like us.
Really?
You know what I mean? It was, it was like these
our people.
Our people.
Yeah.
And like some are people that I was like, maybe you're not me. You know what I mean?
Totally. There are ones that have taken this to a place where you go, you have somehow sucked the joy out of everything that I love, because it's become so niche and so particular, and everything has to be so specific that you're driving me crazy. So I know exactly what you mean.
Our thing can very easily tip over into comic book guy.
It can be the actually guy. Yes.
No, we got to be vigilant for that.
Vigilant.
It could happen in the blink of an eye.
It really can.
So, you know, but anyway, so people had like vinyl and posters and things for him to sign and stuff.
Love it.
And it was great. It was great. And he put on a terrific show. And so I did go backstage, and I did say hello, and I did mention that I saw him in St. Louis and danced. And he's like, I remember that. And I don't know if he did.
But still, I was hoping you would say I remember that. That's great.
Yeah. And so I like got his email address, and we sort of, you know, exchanged emails here and there. I was like afraid to, you know, like there's certain people. I have a few numbers in my phone that I'm like, it's not probably okay that they're there, because like I could flip. Like the Fanboy Cork could come out of my mouth or thumbs.
You couldn't have said it better. The Fanboy,
you know what I mean?
Cork.
Fanboy Cork. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh! Yes.
I think you do know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, because I have to be careful to do it with you, and I have to be careful with everybody that I have admired. That there's a Cork that I could easily lose, and I could start geeking out really fast. So back to your story.
So it was that. It was very much that. But then, so I moved out to LA like 20 years ago. And he was already here, which I didn't know. And like, he didn't really seem like a California type of guy. But he lived up in Nichols Canyon.
Okay.
And in like a big house. And he was like, and he was gay, which I didn't know.
Oh.
At the time, I didn't know. And in fact, I don't think until I moved out here I knew. But his partner was like a finance guy, and they had this giant house. Yeah. And so like he invited me over, like he was having some people over, and so I went, and you know, we were like, I wouldn't say we were friends because I was afraid. I was very much on high alert when I was around him.
Yeah.
Not because of him, but 100% because of me. But we were like friendly. We would like, see each other on occasion, and I never missed him live if it was within a few hours drive. And so I got to know him, and we have like, friends in common and stuff. So that was always, just knowing that was always very strange. And like reconnecting with him, connecting with him as a person and reconnecting with his music in adulthood, and finding out that he was a gay person was like, a lot of it made sense, because there is so much like a yearning in the music and in the lyrics that's like that's difficult to define, and that's just sort of it's just kind of, it's imbued with like a melancholy and a need to connect, and it was like, oh well, of course it makes sense.
Of course,
it makes sense.
It all adds up.
Of course, I emotionally connected with it.
Yeah.
So he did die in 2017, and I got to write sort of an obituary for Esquire. Even though, again, it was like, my editor didn't know who it was, but I was like, trust me, there are,
there are fans. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's not huge, but there is a small and like super committed community, and they'll read it. And they did. And, so through a mutual friend, his brother, got a hold of me, and when they came out to like do all the, the memorial, the LA memorial service and whatever, it was right around the time of our Christmas party. And so they came, and I got to know his brother a little bit. And then maybe 3-4 years ago, he asked for my address. And like a week later, I got, like, they had cleaned out his Tommy's storage unit or whatever. And so I got like tons of old cassettes and promotional posters.
Amazing.
Let me turn this over here.
Oh my gosh!
In the middle there
so
is
amazing.
a promo poster for Tommy Keene's first album, which is impossible to find. He sent a vinyl copy of that first album, which is impossible to find, and just some old stuff. And I was so happy to get it, and like, so I sort of, I don't know. It's like I've got some old stuff of his like just hanging out in my office. Anyway, I don't know. So. And having written about him, I then heard from many, many more people who were kind of in the same boat, who just couldn't explain why they liked him so much, but they did.
I'm excited because now my audience will get a chance. There's probably a lot of people that are in my sphere of music, because I tend to cover the bands. The people who are tuning in are that 90s grunge alternative explosion. That's definitely was my adolescent years. And while I grew up with, my parents playing Beatles and my dad listening to Zeppelin, and then I was also raised on classical, and I was raised on musical theater. I was in musical theater. So I have this very, whenever I mention a band that's kind of out of my sphere, people on my videos are always like, I didn't know you liked that. And I'm like, I do. There's a lot of things that I listen to outside of 90s. I also pursue music now. But when you shared this with me, I was like, I'm so glad that I have this place where I can show my sphere, Tommy Keene, and they can check him out. And it's exciting. And your story about being on MTV, saying it's one of these records, it reaching the management, I'm living a very similar experience where I am now because of social media and because of my videos. Here I am in my 40s, and I'm mentioning and making videos about my heroes and people that I grew up adoring and loving. And it is still surreal to me every single time. I never get used to it, that I make a video about a band and that band reaches out within like 24 or 48 hours. It's so surreal to me. You know, like I made this video about Silverchair. Daniel Johns is messaging me like a day later from Australia, and we're talking. I'm just chit-chatting with Daniel Johns, and I'm like, what is my life? What is this? That you make a video and then the artist is like, thanks so much. Yeah, and then it's so crazy to me, and I you know, it even goes on the smaller bands, the lesser known bands, the guys from Superchunk, the guys from Quicksand, like these guys from these more underground, you know, alternative bands that I'm into, and when they message me, I am just as ecstatic as I am when it's the giant megastar. I'm like, this is so cool! I can't believe they're reaching out and they saw my video. I'm so happy.
That never gets old.
It never gets old. It never. You know, I don't think it ever will.
It's still a thrill when, like, you know, I mean, working at MTV, I did get to meet a lot of like famous people, but I can't say that I met a whole lot of people who were like pivotal for me. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, Mandy Moore is great.
Yeah, there was
she's
that
16
era.
when I was meeting her. It was just sort of like, it was fun and all that, but it was, you know, I can't say that, you know, In Sync, like, you know, changed me as a person or whatever. But like, you know, the artists or the writers or whatever who did, there is this world now where you can sort of like, we can know each other, you know, and that's that's still really exciting to me. Yeah. You know, when somebody who wrote or made something that changed me or affected me, it becomes a person that is in my sphere. It's still like, you know, I'm in my 50s now, and I've been at this job for a long time. Yeah. So like I should get used to it, but it's still a thrill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can relate also parallel to when you were starting at MTV, and you know, I haven't worked in music. It's funny because I don't know why it didn't dawn on me when I was like a 20-something that I could work in music. Like I played in bands, but it never dawned on me. I know I pursued a film career, a film and television career, and that has been nothing but heartache and pain and awful. And I was like, I literally walked away before these videos went. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And the moment I started talking about bands, people started paying attention. And there's this part of me that wishes I could go back in a time machine, grab 21-year-old Jacob and be like, do something with music, man. Like you should be incorporating it into your creative career. Yes. But here I am, and I'm finally still getting the chance. I'm not dead yet, you know.
No,
so.
And you're doing it in a more interesting way than you would have when you were 21. I think if you would, you know, I was very much the same way, and I get to kick in myself a lot because, you know, I tried so hard to have a normal job and life and career and stuff because I don't know how I could be so obsessed with music in my teenage years, and like literally, you know, like I said, reading a trade magazine about the music industry any chance I got, and not understand that there's like jobs for people who have that level of like obsession and like and like, you know, like period, like detailed, you know, love of a thing. There's a whole industry around it, and it never occurred to me.
Never occurred to me
to pursue that. I didn't know how. It was just like I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I just don't know what I was thinking. And I do get to kicking myself about that from time to time because I could have found my road a few years earlier and saved myself from some heartache. But who knows what kind of monster cokehead, you know, idiot I would be if I were like in the music industry at age 21 working at a label in promotion or something.
It's
like,
true.
You know, I could have learned a lot of bad habits or just, you know, whatever. Like my path
It's
was
true.
meant to be my path, and your path was meant to be your path.
It's well said, and I have to remind myself of that. And I'm getting better at accepting that the older I get. The more as time goes on, you begin to go like, well, this was my road for a reason. And it does seem like that where I'm standing right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I wasn't ready. Even when I was trying to be an actor in my 20s, I do also think about the success and how that could have demolished who I was as a person, my character and everything. Because I didn't have enough of a foundation and strength of knowing who I was to be able to do that and kind of come out still a good person.
Yeah.
So
same.
I had to grow up and I had to learn a lot of things along the way. And I started telling you this because I realized when you were talking about being around Mandy Moore and these people that it didn't quite have the same effect on you as meeting the idols from that younger time. When I was in my early 30s, my cousin by marriage, he joined Panic at the Disco, and he became the bass player of that band. And it was wild because I could be around that band and I could be around their contemporaries, and it was cool, but it has nowhere near the same impact at that time. When I would be around those artists, I would be like, this is nice, cool, but it wasn't the same as somebody that was inspiring me when I was a teenager. You know what I mean? Like those artists and the people that I'm connecting with now and the people that were part of those formative years, that really is a thing that I can never get tired of, because I just want to always tell these people, like, you have no idea how much you mean to me and how much I hold you dear in my heart. And it's just wild how once you cross a certain age, you can meet the most amazing, talented artists in the world. But you're like, but you weren't part of the creation of Jacob. You didn't build me up into these little blocks like these people over here did.
Yeah. So you get to observe it in a different way.
You totally do.
You get to like see the thing, and it's like, it's fun to watch, but it doesn't. You're not nervous. I recently did a thing. Okay, so a good friend of mine is a musician and songwriter who is tight with the lead guy from Pierce the Veil, which is like an emo band.
Yes,
right?
I'm familiar.
And he's co-written songs with them through the years, including the song that just went to #1, their first #1 ever.
Oh wow!
On the alternative charts, it's called Emergency Contact. I heard it this morning.
I think I've heard it.
English muffin sandwich place on Ventura. But anyway, so they have a new album out, or whatever. A few months ago, they released a new album, and the lead singer was like, "We're gonna do like a fan event, and would you come and do the Q&A with us at the performance?" And I was like, "Sure, great." And I'm like, and I don't, frankly, don't know this band really at all. They're not. Like,
I don't really either.
Yeah. That they're like not a part of my world, but I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And this guy, the singer was like, yeah, the kids are going to show up at about blah, blah, blah time. And I was like, okay, I don't know about kids. But like, okay. So it was, whatever it was, 4 months ago in Glendale. And I drove myself out there, and like the line for this event, when I tell you it was a mile long, it was a mile long. Like it was several long Glendale blocks, and it was at this event was like at a studio, and there was room for maybe 200 kids, and it was packed with 200 kids, and it was like, and those kids were so excited to be that close to their idols, and it was like, in my head I was like, whatever, this will just be a fun thing that I'm doing for a friend. But once I got there, it was like, oh no, this is the music that moves these kids.
Absolutely.
And this is super important to them. And that thing never goes away.
Never goes away.
Like that it's the young people still need that thing.
They still do.
And and I think a lot of those kids were rooting for this band because they were a little, they never really became huge. Now they have a #1, but
now it's working out for them. Yeah.
Now it's working out. And it was a reminder that like you can, even if it doesn't make your stomach like do somersaults, it's still super exciting for somebody, and you can never get like jaded.
100%, and that is a big mission that I have behind my content, which is music being as subjective as it is and as important as it is, I get a lot of messages or requests that say, talk about bands that you hate or be critical of, tell us the things that you don't like. And I'm always like, if there was ever an opportunity that I could do it in such a way, like whether it was an article or something, I could talk about why something didn't connect. Sure. But my feeling is always, somebody loves it. It's somebody, it's important to somebody. And why would I ever shit on something that somebody loves and holds dear? I'm so cautious and careful to do that. And I've never understood why I could have a video about a band, whatever band I'm talking about, and somebody comes on and says, this band sucks. I'm always like, why did you stop by? Why'd you come to my party? Why are you here telling me your opinion on something that we all clearly love and enjoy? I've gotten used to it, but I've just never understood the mentality of, there being a flower shop and somebody just walking up off the street and leaning in and going, I fucking hate flowers. And you're like, we're a flower shop. I don't know what to tell you here. We're doing our thing. You didn't have to come in at all. You didn't have to come in at all. And we're fine not knowing that information. But the internet has made it this place where whether people love something or hate something, they feel like they have to be heard and have to be seen. And I'm always like, if you're going to hear me or see me, it's going to be to uplift, to praise, and talk about things that I enjoy. And I'm not going to waste any time talking about things that I don't like. That's for my friends over a beer. In quiet.
I can be judgy, but it's like, I don't.
I can
really
be judgy.
Needs to
sure.
Hear it.
Right.
Yeah. And you also, there is. I think we've maybe lost sight of the concept of not everything being for everyone.
Right.
Like there are certain things that it's like, no, I don't like this, but it's like, well, I'm not supposed to. They didn't make it for me.
You're not. Yeah, exactly.
I don't. Whatever's playing on Nick Jr. right now, I probably wouldn't like.
He isn't for me,
but they didn't make it for me, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I'll go through a mix, a playlist of stuff that's coming out now that's like the new hit songs, and I'll scan and I'll go, none of this is connecting, and I'm like, yeah, but you know what? It's really not supposed to. It's really not for me. They're not singing to me. They're not writing about where I'm at in my life, and I can usually tell that right away. And that's just
it's not for you.
It's not for me.
It's not supposed to be. So
and that's okay.
That's totally okay. Okay. I meant to ask you earlier because you seem to connect with the idea of being like the only person who liked something.
Oh yeah.
So what was your formative? I'm the only person who knows or likes this thing.
So my brother and I, we were listening to this college radio station. My brother is 2.5 years older than me. He was a huge influence, and I loved everything he did. And I just, I wanted to be like my brother Joel. And we would discover this college radio together, and it was this really weird oddball stuff. It was called The Edge of Insanity. And they would play like underground, industrial and things like that. And the Descendants and the Pixies and all these bands, Jane's Addiction, and this was before the grunge explosion. And my brother and I were taping it off the radio, and I really connected with this idea that there was like, I was listening to something that would get me into trouble. And so I would say that I really, like, Pixies is an example of something that was crazy sounding that nobody in my sphere was listening to. Like Frank Black was just screaming in the middle of a song for no reason, not like a metal scream, but just like a cry out.
Yeah.
And I remember showing it even to some of my peers at the time when they were like, the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like it just didn't work. And then years later they would be like, by the way, love Pixies, so good. And I was like, just like you with your story, I was like, well, thank you for finally catching up to my knowledgeable level. But that was a band that I held dear to, because even though there was probably some, Here Comes Your Man being played on 120 minutes, it still wasn't anything my peers or anybody in my circle was listening to. And I felt so cool popping on Doolittle and being like, this is for me.
Yeah. College radio is such huge. Is so important for like a maybe 15-year span of time.
Yeah.
Like I think it kind of started, like I said, in my brother's age. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Alternative music was sometimes called college music. Like in
Totally.
the back of Rolling Stone, it was like the college music charts, and that's where you would see the Pixies and things like that. And there was a college station in St. Louis too. Actually, it was sort of a college. It wasn't like a public radio station, but it was a tiny little station.
Tiny one, yeah, not well known.
That came out of a college in St. Louis, and it had like a 7-mile radius where you could listen to it. It was 89.7 KYMC, and I was obsessed with that in like 84, 85, 86, and then in 87 when I got my driver's license, I drove over there and I lied about my age and I applied for a shift and I got a shift.
Nice.
So for like my sophomore, junior, senior year of high school, I had Saturday afternoons on this little tiny radio station, and
That's amazing.
It was heaven.
Heaven.
You know, and still I didn't realize like, I can maybe do. Not necessarily be behind a mic, but just like do anything in this business. I just didn't.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind. One of my most impactful young adolescent movies, which of course it was Pump Up the Volume, Christian Slater. And I can't believe it didn't dawn on me and be like, you could get into radio, you could get into broadcast, you could get into this thing. And I never saw it in front of me that it would be a thing. I've never been a radio host, and now that I do this and I'm like, that sounds like a dream come true to do something where you just are talking and playing music and interacting with people about it. It's just something that never dawned on me. And it at the time when I was an adolescent, I think it probably came from being in theater and being in plays, which I've talked about this on the show before, but just to give you some context, that was the thing that stopped them, strangely enough, from bullying me and picking on me because I was funny. And they were really mean, and they would say awful things to me in the hallway. And then I did a musical. I did Bye Bye Birdie. And then the moment I did the play, I made them laugh. I made all those asshole jocks laugh. And the next day at school, they treated me differently. And so I found a huge amount of solace and peace in being in the public eye and performing in theater. And so that's why I chased it so hard, because it really felt like the thing that I could do and that the world would accept me and appreciate me. Little did I realize at the time that music was so much more like hardwired into who I was as a person. And that when I began to speak about it, people go like, well, that's the torch right there. That's the flame inside that you're all about, you know? So it's just wild.
It is wild. It is wild. But, you know, here again, thank God we are alive at the moment that we're alive. Because you can do these things. You can make these connections. And and you can just, you know, I think, you know, my older brothers don't understand it at all. Like I try to explain to them what my career is right now, and I have a very hard time doing it because it's hard to describe anyway. Yeah. But it's like, but we can do these things, and the stuff that we want to talk about and connect with people about. It's like we put it out there, and we find those people. Yeah, that's exciting.
It is exciting. It is, and. I feel like we could literally talk forever. We have got to get together and hang out. And
absolutely,
I am dying to spend. Close. I know we're so close by. We got to make it happen. Yeah. And you know, I can't keep you all day, but you after MTV, you went on to do a ton of hosting and on TV and acting. You were on Reno 911. I feel like I've seen you pop up in movies, and I'll be sitting there and be like, "There's Dave Holmes," you know, like I've seen it.
Yeah.
And you know, you've really carved out a wonderful career, you know, as a writer and working with Esquire, and also having the podcast that you have. You have the one that you did, which was, I just learned about this Waiting for Impact, which is just absolutely hilarious to me that you got so laser focused on this phenomenon, which I highly recommend everybody. I haven't listened to the show yet, but I read up about your journey of how this came to be. And I was like, I love this music obsession that you saw this sudden impact, this band in the Motown Philly video, which I totally remember.
Yeah.
And you spent 30 years just obsessing, like, what the fuck happened to Sudden Impact? And then you made a 10-episode podcast about it, which is just incredible.
I am prouder of that than almost anything I've ever done in my life. It felt very much like a second book, honestly, like in terms of just, you know, the amount of time it took, and work and whatever. But it's that is a perfect example of something that it's like it is a very specific thing,
so specific
that people probably don't think about, but maybe they do, and maybe they remember it. But it to me is an interesting way to get into some of what we've talked about here about like the idea of like failure, of like setting out to do something and having stars in your eyes and having like a big dream and you make a go of it and it doesn't pan out. Like what happens, because you keep living. Right. And so like it to me felt like a really interesting way to explore a lot of that stuff. And I talk to, I do talk to the band, but also to a ton of other people from that time in music, about their journees, and it is I'm super proud of that show. So
I am gonna listen. I'm gonna listen because it's almost like a detective, like sleuth, like get to the bottom of this mystery, but it's also about music. What a cool combination!
Thanks. It's it was a wild ride. I'll tell you that.
And then your main show before that and still going is Homophilia with Matt McConkey. That's been going on since McConkey. Sorry.
That's been going on. We've been doing that for a few years. We just spoke to talk about finding your way back to music. We just spoke to Isaac Mizrahi, who is like a fashion designer, but he too like wanted to be an actor. Thought that's the way that he was going to go. He basically went to the Fame School in New York City, and that didn't pan out for him. But the designing did, and now he's like, I've got the money. Like I still make clothes here and there, but what I want to do is perform. So he has a cabaret act and he performs at the Cafe Carlyle. And
I love it
and all that. And like he's he too is just kind of like, well, how do I want to express myself? That's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to go and do that.
I love it. Anyway, I love it. So you've been doing that show it's been since 2015, I think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Homophilia.
So years. Wow.
Yeah. Love it.
Time flies.
Love it. I hope to have
Time flies.
I know, right? I hope to have this podcast go on that long as well.
Yeah.
And longer. Why not?
Yeah.
Right? We can record these forever. Why stop? But so many things about your career, the acting thing, did you know that you wanted to act, or was it just something you kind of fell into because you were working around other entertainment folks and in the public eye?
I always I acted and I did the musicals and stuff all through high school as well, in college.
Yeah.
And I never pursued it. I didn't really go after it. I moved to New York, and when I was before MTV, I did improv.
Right.
I was in an improv group and stuff in the 90s, before UCB got there. So it was not cool and we were not good. But after MTV, when I moved out to LA, I kind of, I got back into that world. And so I fell in, that's kind of my whole friend base is people I met at Improv Olympic on Hollywood.
Oh, I love it.
And And so I would audition here and there. But Reno happened because I loved that show. And in season 1, the main cast played all the perps. All the perps have their faces blurred out because it's other people from the cast.
Oh, gotcha.
And so in season 2, I had read or heard or whatever that they were going to open it up. And I was like, just get me in there. Get me in the fucking door. Get me in there. And I auditioned and they I got in and my character recurred through the whole rest
Leslie Frost, right?
Leslie Frost, yeah. It was that was a total blast.
That group I've loved. Obviously MTV Origins on the MTV The State, and just being a fan of that. So when it fell into Reno 911, I was like, I love these guys and I love what they put together. So just so cool.
They're so much fun.
So much fun,
and they're so funny. They're so funny.
You should come with me sometime. There's this really cool thing here in LA. It's called the Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band with David Wayne and Ken Marino. Wow. It's so fun. It's so funny. It's several of the state members and then like crazy drop-ins like Weird Al Yankovic, and they'll play like in a backyard, and they'll play these, mostly 70s and early 80s like hit songs, Springsteen, all that stuff. But it is so fun. I got a chance to meet David and Ken, and just meeting those guys was again, Fanboy Cork, plop it in. And one of my earliest, like when I was making the TikToks and I got a follow from Thomas Lennon, I literally was like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited! I'm so excited!
He's the nicest.
So
He's
excited!"
The nicest.
I still never met him, but I am such a Thomas Lennon fan, and I used to do his, I used to do in high school. I would redo state sketches, and I would choose like the Thomas Lennon ones that were my absolute favorites. So
he's
so great,
just an absolute genius. When that show was on. Like if they were going to use me in an episode, they would call a couple weeks before, and when one of those numbers came up on my whatever caller ID, it was like, oh boy, something fun's about to happen. I don't know what it's going to be, but like it's going to be fun. And then you get to set, and it's like, the only rule is like, wait a minute, just wait like a second before you laugh.
Yeah.
So the editor can like cut a scene together, because it's not don't break. It's just try and hold it together for 1 second before you break, so that because that's all we would do, was just make each other laugh all day long. Yeah. God, it was what a thrill.
What a thrill. I love it. Well, I hope to see you appear surprisingly in future projects that I'm watching after the strike is over, of course.
After the strike is over. This dadgum strike. Are you picketing?
I haven't been able to make it out there yet, but I am 100% a supporter of the strike, and I have one of those day jobs that is not in the entertainment industry whatsoever. So I'd have to go into work and be like, hey, I'm going to go out and strike today. So I'd have to do that. But I should get out there on the picket line and walk around and high five all those amazing folks. And this
Universal's blowing up today. I'm sorry I'm missing it.
I know, and
tons of people.
I witnessed the first one. I've lived in LA, like you have, for a long time, and one of my big jobs to pay the bills was I worked at NBC Universal, and I worked in the film IT department, so it was the tech. But I got that job in 2007, and I think it was 2008 that the strike for that writer strike began. And I remember going to work and looking out my window and seeing all these people, picketing outside my work. So it's crazy that here we are yet again, and these greedy bastards cannot just fucking get it together and help people make a livable wage and figure shit out. So just
what's wrong with y'all?
I know, right? I know. We can go on forever.
Yeah, the Writers Guild is allegedly sitting down with the producers today.
Good.
So who knows? Who knows what may?
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I'm not super optimistic, but you never know.
Yeah, me neither. Because all the feedback we're getting now is that they're going to stall as long as possible and be just absolute assholes. So, but maybe I'll see you out on the picket lines one of these days soon. Yeah,
I'd love it. All right.
Well, thank you again, Dave Holmes.
Thank you.
This has been so cool for me, and I just enjoyed every minute hearing about your love of Tommy Keene, and for my audience, they should know it was a tough thing to whittle down to just one, like it is for most of my guests. When I ask that question, a lot of my guests go, "Oh, just one." It's like so hard to narrow it down, but you were able to, and I think
but also easy. This one is I don't
important.
Just love it. It's like. Yeah, it's had an impact. It's had a lasting impact.
I think when you went through the whole story, I was like, it had to be this one. This was the one. You knew totally. It in your heart of hearts that of impactful albums, because there are many, of course. Yeah, there's many. But anyway, thank you so much,
Jacob. Thank you. This has been a ball.
I'm so glad that means a lot coming from a podcaster pro like you, and please check out everything that Dave's got out there. He's got the Homophilia. You should definitely check out that podcast, and you should definitely check out Waiting for Impact. And he has a book, Party of One, a memoir in 21 songs that I want to read. I just looked that up, and I'm going to.
You can.
I can't.
Do it.
I can't read it.
Nobody's stopping you.
I'm gonna get it, and I want you to sign your name to it. That's what I want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would be awesome. That'd be great.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks again.
Thank
and we'll talk soon.
Love it.
That was so cool. What an amazing conversation. I will never forget this concept of the Fanboy Cork. I'm going to be using that all the time because it's definitely something I deal with guests like Dave Holmes, who I fan out over, and then all these musicians and artists that I'm getting a chance to connect with and talk with. It is this balance, this delicate balance of being able to show them how much you love and appreciate them, but also not freaking them out. So I definitely geeked out a little bit with Dave here, but I think he took it really well, and I was happy that I don't think I scared him off. I think I'm legitimately going to get a chance to hang out with him, and I'm excited about that. So I talked a lot on the show about the things that he's done, so definitely go check out his podcast. Both of them, the Limited Run as well as the Homophilia, all of his work is great, and he does write a lot of articles. So if you search Dave Holmes, you'll see some really cool stuff that he's written for Esquire and elsewhere about music and different perspectives that he has. But above all else, I just loved learning about an artist like Tommy Keene that meant so much to Dave, and just getting a chance to listen. Now, I couldn't find Tommy's albums on a platform like Spotify, but if you look, you can find, whether it's a YouTube song or whatever. But I highly recommend you go out and seek out Tommy Keene's music. It's definitely something that is important, and we should spread the word about his music that he left behind, so that we can find a whole bunch of other people who like that jangly feel. Again, thank you for checking out the show. Thank you, Dave Holmes, for being my guest. And if you're not following me on the socials, if you just listen, then please do that. And make sure you're commenting and subscribing and doing all the things that help Waterproof Records grow. Again, distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof for that 30% off. And I am trying to get more on a schedule with these coming out. I know they come every other week, and sometimes it's a crapshoot as to what day it's going to be on, but that's just the nature of trying to put together this podcast in my free time. So I can't do this without you, so thank you so much. I appreciate you guys always checking out the show, and we'll see you next time on Waterproof Records. Bye-bye.
Things are gonna change, I can feel it. If there's gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna...
Waterproof Records.